I don't just want to be in the race for clean energy. I want us to win the race.
Net zero. Oh my God, isn't it awful? Tell you what, we're not even a part of it. Look at the numbers.
Net zero, you know what net zero, they have no idea what it means, by the way. It's net zero. What does that mean? Nobody knows.
Climate change has become a climate crisis, and a threat has now become a reality.
Zero carbon
Eastall. Hello and welcome to Zero Carbonista, Series 6, The Cow in the Room. I'm Ian Collins, and this is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. If it's green, it is in. I mean, it's really that simple, Dale, isn't it? We don't monkey around with this stuff here. We're straight out the hatches here.
Utterly fantastic. That's what we are.
Yeah, I like it. Got Jim Bowen's just come back in the room. What's going on? Shall we start? By the way, we've got a George Monbiot update, but I think we should save that for a bit because this is becoming more gripping than a Netflix box set.
It's out of the box, isn't it, really? But let's talk about it in a minute.
Yeah. Should we start with right wingnut? And the potential next Tory leader, Robert Jenrick, is in.
Not a co-leader, as we talked about last week, but actually could be the leader.
He's having none of that old shit.
I would imagine. Yeah, so about him, he's been in the Sun, ranting, apparently.
He hasn't been to Barbados.
Not that Sun.
Yeah,
no.
He's been in the Sun newspaper having a rant.
The one that likes to shine on Tories above all other people, the Sun.
Well, back in the day.
Well, I think they still do. Anyway, he's been ranting about fuel duty and why it shouldn't go up in the budget, which is coming soon. And he says we've got some of the highest fuel taxes in Europe and all this kind of stuff, whether that's true or not. I mean, I don't know, but who even cares? And he claims that Labour's Climate Act from 2008 is Soviet style. And
he's thrown the Putin hat into the ring on this one. He's
made
gone
me laugh.
Straight for the Rusky bullseye.
That's right. And he made me laugh because this is from a government that imposed price controls on energy. And that's not a very common occurrence in Western democracies, is it? I mean, what's he talking about?
Yeah. I don't think France or Germany or Spain have ever done this.
Or America or any Western democracy. I think we're the only one with price controls on energy. And that was courtesy of the Red Tory government of, I forget which one of the fools it was, actually.
It was your mate David Cameron, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? After he beat Jezza.
Are you still writing to each other, you and DC? I
don't think they deliver to his shepherd's hut. That's the problem.
Oh, I see.
Because it's a privatised service now. You see, it's a privatised service. And if you haven't got a house and a postcode, well...
When he said, I'll write to you, Dale, he knew what was coming.
Did he say that?
I think so. Well, there was a potential blossoming of something good there.
Oh, no, don't bring that up.
But it was only for about 3 minutes, to be fair.
He thought he could hug me like a husky.
Yeah.
That's what it was. But I was having none of it.
It never happened.
I'm like, put them dog treats back in your pocket. Kazza. Can I call him Kazza?
You can call him Kazza, yeah. It sounds a bit risky, doesn't it? So that's good.
Anyway, should we talk about the budget?
Let's talk about the budget, because there's something within this that affects a point you've made a number of times. And this is cross-party MPs urging Rachel Reeves to impose a 2% tax on wealth above 10 million. And you've advocated for something in this kind of area for a while.
Yeah, look, I'm all for what's often called a wealth tax, which is a tax on people that have got, plenty of money and that kind of stuff. But I do think it's important to see a bigger picture as well, and to change the language as well, because people with money pay less tax as a percentage of their income than people that have relatively no money, ordinary people. And so the system is actually prejudiced in favor of people with money and against people with very little money. And so when we call it a wealth tax, it kind of makes it sound like it's bashing the rich, but it's not. It's saying, hey, pay your fair share. So for example, and my favorite example is income tax is something that you pay if you have a job. But if you earn money from investments in shares or property or anything else, that's not income, apparently. That's a capital gain. And then you pay half the rate of tax for that as if you had a job. And I say, what the is that all about? Why do we tax money made with money at half the rate of money made with a pair of hands? That's where the fundamental wrongness is in the tax system. And that's what I really want to see changed. I want to see capital gains tax brought to the same level as income tax. Let's treat all income as income and not call some income something different and treat it different.
They say the move could raise £24 billion quid a year.
Yeah, that one, the 2% is 24 billion. The equalization of capital gains tax with income tax, or just calling all income, I mean, it's simple really, that could raise 16 billion. So together, we're looking at 40 billion quid a year. I mean, fucking hell, that's a lot of money.
If I can put my anti-tax hat on, Dale, it's one of my favourite hats I like to wear. Some would say, what's with the urgency to tax everything? You know, let's have some things we don't tax.
I'm all for that. But at the moment, our tax system is prejudiced against people that have the least. We're giving massive tax breaks to the people with the most. Our tax code has something like 11 or 1,200 different tax reliefs in it. And HMRC have already admitted they only understand 300 of them, the cost of them to the economy. They don't know what the cost of the other, 1,000 of them are. We have one of the most complicated tax regimes in the world. It was written by people with money, for people with money, so that they pay less tax. And we just need to sweep all of that away and have a simple tax regime where we all pay our fair share.
This comes from Megan on LinkedIn. He says, Dale, you got loads of business pitches and connections at the Blue Earth Summit. How do we get our ideas to you?
Yeah, good question. And so, but look, it's a good question. And apparently...
Was that a funny... did I miss a joke there? Was that a funny question when you said it was a good question?
No, I was just thinking about what I was going to say, because there's a note here from Will, helpfully, isn't it, telling us the answer. And I thought, well, don't say that.
Yes.
So
we monitor the email address so people can send stuff through. There you go.
And that's word for word. And I'm not sure about the accent.
Yeah, Will doesn't sound anything like that, we should clarify. Sort of just a generic boffin.
It's a great question. And the answer in front of me is that we have an email address, zerocarbonista@ecotricity.co.uk. And we're grabbing stuff there. I mean, this is where some of these emails are coming from. Maybe you even wrote to us on that email address, Megan. I'm kind of maybe guessing you did. That's the place to send them.
Let's talk about the Earth heating up. There's a United Nations warning that perhaps goes further than previous ones, and we've had a few.
So this report is predicated on all of the promises that countries have made to get to zero carbon by certain dates. The UN had pulled all of the promises together and said, it ain't enough, actually. The target's dead. Even if we hit all of these promises, we need bigger, better promises. It's not too late, but we have to do things that have just never been done before in peacetime. But that's okay, because we've had wars before. We just have to see this as a war and get going. But it's a shocking report from the UN. They're basically saying it ain't good enough, even if we hit our targets, and most people are failing to hit their targets. Let's not forget that. We're heading for 3 degrees global warming, and we think 1.5 might be the safest maximum we can live with. But even that, there is doubt around.
So what, in layman's terms, Indale, what the hell happens then if we start going above this? I mean, I know there's an obvious answer, short answer to that, but I mean, seriously, what happened? Do we all go and live underground? What's the score? Does it just get a bit warmer?
It's apocalyptic. For tens of millions of us, we won't be living at all, right? And there'll be another tens of millions, hundreds of millions of climate refugees driven out of parts of the world that are simply uninhabitable. We'll struggle to grow food, to drink water, do all of the normal kinds of things, even breathe air, or survive in the kinds of temperatures that are going to be found more commonly across the world. I mean, it's an environment catastrophe that is going to make the world unlivable for human beings. And it's crazy that we're still running headlong into that when we're worried about money, because that's all it's going to take to solve this problem. Right? Spend more of our money on getting to net zero.
So that's the doom and gloom, Dale. What about water companies? Yes. They always raise a smile. What a giggle those guys are.
As if an environment catastrophe wasn't enough, we're facing water companies that want to almost double our water bills. I mean, it's the same old story. Privatization, you get these foreign owners come in, they buy essential British infrastructure like power, like water, like rail, and then they f it up. We get worse service, we get bigger bills, and they create huge profits for themselves, which they take out of our country. And in the case of water companies, often into tax havens for themselves. And, we get to drink shit, actually, literally, sewage in our water, while they've made billions and loaded billions of debt onto the water industry. So right now they want to double our water bills to pay for it, for fuck's sake. I mean, the cheek of these people, it's incredible.
I was just going to say, there's a couple of points there. One is that I heard one of these characters on an interview recently who said, yeah, what you have to understand is there's a lot of old Victorian infrastructure down there that we've got to deal with. It's like, well, why haven't you dealt with it already?
Yes.
It's not as if you haven't been making mega bucks in the meantime. You've had like a few decades to sort this out. So don't be, talking about, we can't go there because there's an ancient clay pipe buried near the mains. I mean, that doesn't wash anymore.
They're monopolies, actual physical monopolies. We've got no choice but to take our water from the company in the region where we live. And it's for that reason that they should be regulated better. We put out a report recently on DNOs, that stands for District Network Operator. They're the people that own the wires that supply our homes. And it's the same situation, actual physical monopolies owned by foreign companies based in tax havens, taking hundreds of millions of pounds out of our economy every year through higher bills. They are allowed to make a 40% profit margin through this complete physical natural monopoly, whereas energy suppliers are only allowed a 1.5% profit margin. So we've been calling for that to change. We could knock nearly 300 quid off everybody's energy bill overnight if we don't let the bastards make a 40% profit margin. I mean, I think that's like, who's going to argue with that?
Yeah, well, the water companies, I think.
In this case, the DNOs, but yes.
The fellow with the Victorian pipe problem, I think.
But they're all the same kind of thing.
I think he's arguing with that.
Yeah, water, grid operators, it's all the same. It's our infrastructure. It was built with our money, actually, and then sold on the cheap by Thatcher to these robber barons who now charge us even more to use it while it decays in front of our eyes. That's what's happening.
And interestingly, the chairman of all the water companies is called Robber Baron. Isn't that strange? What a coincidence.
I wish you had made that up. That would have been a lovely bit of nominative determinism.
Wouldn't it just? One from Francesco, who says, I've got a question for both of you. Ian, would you please clarify where you are personally with the greenest theme of all, veganism? You've spoken about your vegetarian dalliance, but no clarity on your thoughts on veganism. Well, had carrots for lunch, having a cabbage for dinner. I think I'm there. Here's one for you, Dale, who says, I hear some of your objections related to the royal family and the monarchy. I'm curious to know, though, why did you choose to accept an OBE? I'd love to know about your decision-making at the time, and how do you feel about it today? I'm not sure I even knew you had an OBE.
Wow, I keep that quiet.
Well, not now. Did you have to go down to the palace for that?
I didn't have to. It's a funny story, actually. I think it might even be in my book. But I was having a meeting one day in my office, and my PA knocks on the door and says, "Is number 10 on the phone?" And I'm like, "Really?" I mean, that doesn't happen every day, does it?
Well, you live at number 9, so it's quite conceivable your neighbour was just calling you about that water leak.
I'll talk to number 10. And then I get this lady on the phone and she says to me, just checking. We sent you a letter to ask if you'd accept an OBE and we haven't heard back from you. And I'm like, really? She said to me, here's a number to call. And I call this number and there's an answer phone that just says, if you've been given this number, it's a hoax. You haven't won anything or whatever it is. I don't know what it was. But basically, we went round and round in circles till eventually it turned out that Tony Blair wanted to give me an OBE, and I never met the bloke, but he liked my work, and I have to say, more than a little bit flattered, a little bit torn as well. OBE, that's Order of the British Empire, right? Not such a good thing necessarily, but it felt like it would bring some kudos to my work, is what I thought. And so I said, oh, it. Yeah, why not?
And is it true you wear the thing as a belt buckle?
Oh, no, it's a little, you made that up, didn't you? It's a medal. It's a medal and I've never worn it.
You've never worn it?
I think that would be a bit, twatty, wouldn't it?
I think you should wear that on one lapel and a cycling proficiency badge on the other one.
Oh, now you're dissing the whole thing, aren't you? Come on.
Not at all. Not at all. I think it's amazing. See, if I'd got that, I'd be shouting. I wouldn't stop talking about it. I wouldn't talk to anybody who didn't acknowledge it every time I met them.
You'd get an OBE tattoo on your forehead.
Yeah, I would have thought people would curtsy and bow in your presence and stuff.
Yeah.
Some more questions to finish on. Anthony says, Anthony and many, 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 many others would love to hear you and George Monbiot settle this conversation once and for all, because it kicked off again sort of in the week, didn't it, when George kind of went on what you can only call, what us kids would refer to as a mega rant.
I don't know what's happened to George, right? He kicked off by accusing me of ecocide, which is an incredible thing, of actually Daily Mail style falsehoods about heat pumps when everything I've said is factual, and of only speaking out against heat pumps for self-interested reasons, which is just spiteful and mean, right? And I think below him, I thought he was a Guardian columnist, not somebody that wrote for a tabloid, but that's how he's behaving. And
he said you're turning into Elon Musk.
Oh my God, I forgot that one. I mean, that's just so low, right?
I mean, there's insult, and then there's going Musk bound. I mean, that's just
I know. And it turns
that's in
out
another stratosphere.
he's gone further today, actually. He's accused me of crimes against humanity, I think it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is like a united. No, you say another one today. Is he still going?
Oh, yeah,
It's
he's still going.
Like 2 days ago, I saw he began this. He must have like posted a 1,000 different tweets on it.
And here's a bloke, right, that's never had a heat pump, as far as I can tell. I've asked the question. Up until recently, he had 3 wood-burning stoves to heat his home because he decided, I don't know, a decade ago, that the answer to heating our homes without fossil fuels was to burn trees. I mean, can you believe it? This man is meant to be a serious environmentalist, and he thought burning trees, as long as he bought them locally, that's the answer, I mean, which is incredibly stupid. He was disabused of that by a fellow columnist on The Guardian. Only last year, he wrote an article to say that, like, oh shit, I f***ed up, didn't I? Yes, George, you did f*** up, right? How are we to believe you know about heat pumps, of which you've never had one? But you're telling us that's the answer, and that everything I'm saying is untrue. And I'm actually using facts and numbers, and all I'm getting back from George is insults and name calling. And
There's a lot of that. Do you think maybe he's been smoking the remnants of his wood burning stove?
Well, there's an email here in from Will who kind of alludes to something like that. He says, "Blimey, what's happening with Monbiot? I think he's inhaled too much wood smoke."
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to talk to somebody.
And he's a bit of a dick, it says here.
Will or George?
That was Will said it, but he said it about George.
And let's go to X-rated corner. I'm sure we're going to. The Monbiot thing is, as I said at the beginning, turning into a little bit of a kind of an eco drama of some sorts, worthy of Netflix style prominence. So we might even return to this next week. Watch this space. An X-rated corner brings us a couple of beauties. These are the tweets or the X's that people assume will never get read out, but they do. This comes from Stephen Hale Oz, who says, "Taxes do not raise money, they delete it. Government spending creates pounds and taxes, then deletes those pounds. Understanding the system is important. Taxes have vital functions, but they pay for nothing in the literal sense of the term." Dale, quick question. What the is he on about?
I was going to say that to you. I mean, I'm trying to make sense of that. Government spending creates pounds.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it creates economic growth and activity.
Conditions.
Which then leads to tax, which the government can then spend on more economic activity. I mean, It's actually a virtuous circle.
One from Gemma Slati, who says, "It's all a front. I've heard from people who live near that Dale Vince that he's got a helicopter and a big diesel truck. It seems the helicopter rumor is back in play."
It's back.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, who are these people that live near me that say these things? Come on. It's probably Monbiot, actually. It's probably him. He's chipping in with an alias.
I think so.
Oh, by the way, he called you my unnamed Oppo, apparently.
Yes, he
on social
did.
media.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, unnamed courtier, I think.
Courtier? Oh, you must have something to say about that.
Yeah. Well, if I'm an unnamed courtier, I deserve an OBE. That's what I'd say about that. Surely this is the path towards such an accolade.
Oh, by the way, I hope you're going to read out the one from Gammon Roast. He's got the best name.
Yeah, Gammon Roast says, "How much has Dale Vince voluntarily donated to HMRC of his fortune? Performative virtue signalling from the green subsidy junkie."
I love it. It's got all the ingredients in here.
Everything is in there. He didn't miss a beat, did he, Gammon
The
Roast?
chopper. He missed the chopper. But, I mean,
he missed, yeah. Maybe that came from him as well, or his wife.
Yeah, or his mate Gemma Slati. They kind of teamed up on this one.
I think that is a dual. They did a pincer movement, but they haven't got you, Dale.
It's so frustrating to be answering this question again. Ecotricity hasn't had subsidies from the government, hasn't had green subsidies from the government or brown ones. I mean, whatever color you want to talk about, that's not a thing. And actually, I paid more tax last year than Starbucks.
Oh, there you go. That's a substantial amount of. Although some people say Starbucks pay all, so I don't know where we. I don't know where we go with that. I think I paid more than Starbucks, more than Google. That doesn't work either, does it?
In the last 2 years, it's been about 20 million quid or something like that, right? Yeah. And it's a lot of money because I'm based here only. I've got no offshore interest, no tax haven things going on. I just pay tax here.
There it is. And a final one from Andrew, who says, "Any comment on the thousands of turbine blades being buried because they can't be recycled?" I bet you won't answer that, Dale Vince.
Sorry to disappoint. Sorry to disappoint.
Where are the blades, Dale? Come on.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they are being buried, but we talked about this a couple of episodes ago, didn't we? The amount of fiberglass in the world and the fraction of that that's being used to make turbine blades. Relatively recently, fiberglass has been around longer than wind turbines. I think it was about 10% or something like that. So my question to you, Andrew, is what about the other 90% of fiberglass that's been made for decades and ends up not being, where does that go? All of the boats and pipes and appliances that have glass fiber in them, that's been going on forever. And it's 9 times bigger than the amount used in wind turbine blades. Why are you not worried about that?
There it is. Dale, we are dismissed from this episode.
For that. That was hard.
Don't forget, of course, you can follow Dale on social media. Twitter.com/DaleVince, Facebook.com/DaleVince, and on TikTok too.
Come on. I'm out of sync even doing that.
Zero carbon.
East of.